when the receptionist comes from behind her desk and screams, "Mr. is there? Mr. is here."
病院とかでもさ、さーんって大きい声で言うって感じやん。
Guys, I love my last name in English, but my last name in Japanese has caused me a few problems, some minor problems, and I'm a little bit concerned of the problems that it could cause in the future. Stick around so that you know exactly what I'm talking about. But before I go any further, I would like to ask any of you who are not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to make it to 100 subscribers, and I would appreciate your help. I love you guys so much. Let's get into the video. So, I think it'd be appropriate to start off by telling you what my last name is. My last name is Willis. You know, pretty Norman. You know, pretty normal last name in the West. You've probably met a few Willises. That name hasn't really caused me much trouble in the West besides the person talking about,
"What you talking about, Willis?"
But, you know, my last name hasn't really caused me any trouble. But here in Japan, I can't say the same thing. Originally, nothing about my last name struck me as alarming until 2020 happened. Now, I can see the question marks popping up all over you guys' heads. Let me explain even further. Be patient with me. So my last name is Willis. That's how you pronounce it in the standard American accent. Here in Japan, they pronounce it with their Japanese accent, and when they write it phonetically, and that sounds something like Wirisu. And that never bothered me, like I said. But the more I learned Japanese, I came across a word that sounds like my last name, and I was just so blissfully ignorant of the existence of this word. That word is Wirisu. Now, for those of you who know Japanese, you probably saw this coming from a mile away. Wirisu means virus. I can see the gears starting to turn in some of you guys' heads. Yes, that's why my name never really bothered me until 2020. So my last name Willis is Wirisu. The word virus in Japanese is Wirisu. Now, why does it sound like that? Some of you may be sitting here talking about that word doesn't sound very Japanese. Let me give you a little bit of a lesson. If you want to skip the lesson, then just skip this part of the video. The Japanese language has something that I'm sure every language in the world has, called import words. And basically what import words are words from another language adopted into a different language to express a concept or an idea. Now, we have those all the time in English. You may have heard of the word kindergarten. Yes, it's pronounced with a T and not a D, like some of you guys be pronouncing it. Yes, kindergarten is a German word. Kinder meaning child, Garten meaning garden. But besides that example, here's something that most people can relate to: food. The names of a lot of foods are just import words. We don't really change the name of foods between languages. For example, spaghetti is Italian, tacos is Spanish, chow mein is Chinese, and so on and so forth. Sushi is Japanese. And for some reason, Japan decided to adopt the German word for virus to express virus in their own language. And that's what my last name kind of sounds like. You guys have to imagine how uncomfortable it is. I mean, just look at me. I'm a tall black guy with dreadlocks here in Japan, and it doesn't really help with the attention when you're sitting at a place like the clinic or at City Hall or wherever you may get your name called. And when the receptionist comes from behind her desk and screams, "Mr. Virus, is there a Mr. Virus here?" You know, that's such an alarming thing to yell at an establishment. Is there a Mr. Virus in the room? Nobody wants to be in the same room as a Mr. Virus. I believe, personally, the reason why they make that mistake so easily is because the coronavirus has just been such a talking point for the past 3 years, ever since coronavirus had the world under its thumb. And so they might have seen the word virus like 10 times a day. It was plastered all over the TVs. You heard it on the radio. You would, talk about the coronavirus in your daily chit chat with your coworkers and friends. It was just a word that was seared into our brain. Virus, 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 worldwide. So them seeing the word virus and then them saying my name, I understand why they can make that mistake, but I have to correct them sometimes, guys, especially people who I know I'm going to be around for a while. Like 2 months ago, I was hospitalized for about 2 weeks, And on the first day of me being in the hospital, one of the nurses called me Mr. Virus. And I had to say, listen, I understand the mistake, but please, my last name is Willis, not Virus. So I would appreciate it if you could, not call me Mr. Virus, if that's, especially in a hospital. I don't want to be called Mr. Virus every time you come up inside this room. Yeah, those are just some of the conversations that I have to have. And, the people who I correct, they always apologize profusely. And they feel a little bit embarrassed because I kind of called them out. I try not to call them out in front of people, but yeah, that's just what I have to do. Now, why did I say that I'm worried about the problems that it could cause in the future? I think this would be very easy for a lot of you to understand. And if you guys were in my situation, please write down in the comments below what you would do. So, my wife, she is pregnant with our baby, our first child, and they are inevitably gonna stand out here in Japan. Why? Because most people in Japan have pale skin and straight jet black hair, and our child will definitely have brown skin with curly, possibly brown hair. Couple that with their last name being Willis and sounding like Virus in Japanese. And then couple that with elementary school students and middle school students who just take anything and try to turn it into a joke. I don't want my child going to school and being called, Virus this, Virus that, while being a half black, half Japanese kid in school. So I asked my wife, I said, listen, Sayaka, can we send the children to school with your maiden name? And she said, no, we're gonna send them to school with their name, which is Willis. And she said, we're the Willis family, and she's proud of that, and I really appreciate that. That was very touching. But of course, I had to ask her, okay, if we're gonna send them to school as Willises, what are we gonna do so that they won't get bullied? And this is what she had to say.
まず子供が小学校に入学したら、まず先生に名前ちゃんと発音できるように練習させる。名前ちょっと一回言ってもらっていいですか、って言って全員に、だからウィーリースだからウイーリースでもなくウイルスでもないちゃんと発音してもらうっていうのを全員の教師に言ってもらうようにして、というのでいじめがなるかもしれへんってことを伝えて、先生に協力してもらいたい。病院とかでもさ、ウイルスさんって大きい声で言う感じよ。
So that's really all that we can do, and I'm going to be right there with her. I'm going to be right there with the children. I'm going to try to prevent this as much as we possibly can. I'm going to try my best to, of course, raise children who can take a joke, who can roll with the punches, but at the same time, show their teeth when they need to. Speak up when things are going a little bit too far. Be a little bit tough when it's necessary. So I'm going to do my part as a father. Sayaka's going to do her part as the mother. And you guys need to do your part by subscribing. And that's really it. Anyways, guys, that's all I have to say for today's video. Love you guys so much. Please subscribe if you haven't. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.